Experience and poverty. Our childhood anthologies used to contain the fable of the old man who, on his deathbed, fooled his sons into believing that there was treasure buried in the vineyard. They would only have to dig. They dug but found no treasure. When autumn came, however, the vineyard bore fruit like no other in the whole land. They then perceived that their father had passed on a valuable piece of experience. The blessing lies in hard work and not in gold. Such lessons and experience are passed on to us, either as threats or as kindly pieces of advice, all the while we were growing up. Still wet behind the ears, and he wants to tell us what's what. You'll find out at Faden as soon enough. Moreover, everyone knew precisely what experience was. Older people had always passed it on to younger ones. It was handed down in short form to sons and grandsons, with the authority of age, in proverbs, with an often long-winded eloquence, as tales, sometimes as stories from foreign lands at the fireside. Where has it all gone? Who still meets people who really know how to tell a story? Where do you still hear words from the dying that last, and that pass from one generation to the next like a precious ring? Who can still call on a proverb when he needs one, and who will even attempt to deal with young people by giving them the benefit of their experience? No, this much is clear. Experience has fallen in value amid a generation which, from 1914 to 1918, had to experience some of the most monstrous events in the history of the world. Perhaps this is less remarkable than it appears. Wasn't it noticed at the time how many people returned from the front in silence, not richer but poor in communicable experience, and what poured out from the flood of war books 10 years later as was anything but the experience that passes from mouth to ear? No, there was nothing remarkable about that, for never has experience been contradicted more thoroughly. Strategic experience has been contravened by positional warfare, economic experience by the inflation, physical experience by hunger, moral experiences by the ruling powers. A generation that had gone to school in horse-drawn streetcars now stood in the open air, amid a landscape in which nothing was the same except the clouds, and at its center, in a force field of destructive torrents and explosions, the tiny, fragile human body. With this tremendous development of technology, a completely new poverty has descended on mankind. And the reverse side of this poverty is the oppressive wealth of ideas that has spread among people, or rather has swamped them entirely. Ideas that have come with the revival of astrology and the wisdom of yoga, Christian science and chiromancy, vegetarianism and gnosis, scholasticism and spiritualism. Where this is not a genuine revival but a galvanization, we need to remind ourselves of Ensor's magnificent paintings, in which the streets of great cities are filled with ghosts. Philistines in carnival disguises roll endlessly down the streets, wearing distorted masks covered in flour and cardboard crowns on their heads. These paintings are perhaps nothing so much as the reflection of the ghastly and chaotic Renaissance, in which so many people have placed their hopes. But we can see quite clearly that our poverty of experience is just a part of that larger poverty that has once again acquired a face of the same sharpness and precision as that of a beggar in the Middle Ages. For what is the value of all our culture if it is divorced from experience? Where it all leads when that experience is simulated, or obtained by underhanded means, is something that has become clear to us from the horrific mishmash of styles and ideologies produced during the last century. Too clear for us not to think it a matter of honesty to declare our bankruptcy. Indeed, let's admit it, our poverty of experience is not merely poverty on the personal level, but poverty of human experience in general, hence a new kind of barbarism. Barbarism? Yes, indeed. We say this in order to introduce a new positive concept of barbarism. For what does poverty of experience do for the barbarian? It forces him to start from scratch. To make a new start, to make a little go a long way, to begin with a little and build up further, looking neither left nor right. Among the great creative spirits, there have always been the inexorable ones who began by clearing a tabula rasa. They need a drawing table. They were constructors. Such a constructor was Descartes, who required nothing more to launch his entire philosophy than the single certitude, I think, therefore I am. And he went on from there. Einstein, too, was such a constructor. He was not interested in anything in the whole wide world of physics except the minute discrepancy between Newton's equations and the observations of astronomy. And that the same insistence on starting from the very beginning also marks artists when they followed from the example of mathematicians and built the world from stereometric forms, like the cubists, or modeled themselves on engineers, like Klee. For just like any good car, on whose every part, even the bodywork, obeys the needs above all of the engine, Klee's figures too seem to have been designed on the drawing board, and even in their general expression they obey the laws of their interior rather than their inwardness, and this is what makes them barbaric.